Welcome back to Movies TV Mad. You can follow me on Twitter at Movies TV Mad, and welcome to Thursday's edition of the DCEU Daily. And this is what David F. Sandberg posted on Instagram. If you can see it, this is the famous DC logo that happens before each DC movie, and I think that's since Wonder Woman 2017, is it? I love it. I think it's great. I really do enjoy seeing this before a movie. This is what David had to say. People freaked out when I forgot to put this intro in the first Shazam. Well, it's currently in the sequel. Let's see if it stays. I mean, who knows? By 2023, they could have a new logo or something, which is very, very true. I think they may do. But I really like this logo because you see all the characters, and what I think is really fun about it as well is they're not actors. They're kind of, the faces are kind of blank, aren't they? So you don't know, they're not actors. I like that. That means the role doesn't belong to anyone. And with a multiverse strategy, probably this is the best thing to do. But who knows what they will do next year. He goes on to say, it's because the Batman, Black Adam, The Flash and Aquaman 2 comes out before us. We don't really need all that time to finish the movie, but at least we'll have plenty of time to get good VFX. So I asked him this. So David, I don't expect you to answer this. Considering your movie comes after the Flash movie, will we notice any changes because of that movie? And I think that's a really good question, even if I did ask it myself. But I've spoken about this reboot at length because I think it's very, very fascinating. Now, I've predicted it's a dramatic reboot with huge wholesale changes on a brand new Earth that's going to look different with different versions of these DC characters. Of course, I could be wrong. It may not be a big reboot, but listen, they're doing this for a reason. They're doing this as a studio, right? Because they believe the actual franchise as it isn't working as a business. So they're rebooting it, they're rebranding it. So it must be a big rebrand and a reboot. There's been rumours about a DCEU reboot since Justice League. And I can understand why, even though I was resistant to that at first, and I was one of those people saying just bring Snyder back. That doesn't look like it's going to happen right now. Going back to David F. Sandberg and the whole logo thing, he forgot to put it in last time. I'm staggered that it's actually the director's job to put that in. So I was surprised about that. I was kind of, oh no, why isn't it there? I mean, it wasn't a deal breaker for me. I wasn't going off on social media against David F. Sandberg for it. You know, people make mistakes. It doesn't really matter. But yes, I think it is an interesting question to ask. Are we going to see some kind of changes to the movies after The Flash? So, you know, they're filming Aquaman and the Lost Kingdom now. Will what happens in Flashpoint affect that movie? Will we see changes to the universe? You know, it's kind of an intriguing scenario, isn't it? Because you don't expect to see much difference in terms of Black Adam. The Batman isn't even in the DCEU Earth 1, so you wouldn't expect to see anything in that, although, who knows, there could be hints to the multiverse strategy there as well. The fact that Matt Reeves' kind of film is in Earth 2 is a symbol that we're changing already, and we're changing what this franchise is. Black Adam is a character we haven't seen in live action before, so he will be in his own world, but it's set in Earth 1. When, what year, all of that. But we are going to be in Kardag, which is where Black Adam's from as well. A world we haven't seen before. And it's like the planet Earth, right? It's like the countries we live in. They don't all look the same. You know, if we go to one city to the other, they're different. So there are changes. What I mean is, you know, especially with Shazam, will they give us some clues that we're now on a new Earth or a rebooted Earth, a rebranded Earth? It's something I'm very, very intrigued about because, you know, these are the things that are not really being spoken about. I mean, David F. Sandberg has said in the past that they're not really consulting each other about each other's films, but obviously the studio, if they want them to put something in, will tell them, and there's obviously discussions. So I'm interested in that as well. But I am very, very interested in knowing, you know, does the Flashpoint scenario in the Flash movie affect the movies that come after it. And there's a lack of information right now about that. Now, we do have DC Fandom. We don't know what kind of information, if any, about this they're going to impart to us. Now, I would like some transparency about this, because they're the ones that have told us that you know, the Flash movie is somewhat starting again. But what does that actually mean? What does starting again mean? I've had my theories. Theories can be wrong. So it might not be a dramatic reboot. But considering they're doing this, considering they've said they are doing this, surely the films that come after The Flash will show those changes, or not. So, you know, there's no point rebooting something unless you're rebooting it for a reason. You're rebranding it for a reason. Now, a rebrand can look new and shiny, but it doesn't do anything else. It's just a somewhat distraction. I'm assuming they're doing this for a reason. They're doing this to kill certain elements of what we have within the DCEU right now, and bringing in new elements of it as well. There's still the question mark on Cavill's Superman and Affleck's Batman, but at least we know Affleck's Batman is in the Flash movie. We get one more swan song for Ben Affleck's Batman. It doesn't mean he's going. Thunder, scary. I hate thunder and lightning. My electric better not go. Anyway, so it doesn't mean this is Ben Affleck's final appearance, but it could be. This could be the final goodbye, and maybe this is why Affleck wanted to do it. Again, we're really not sure if this is the last movie. What's interesting about the Affleck situation, Affleck hasn't spoken publicly about his return as Batman, which is staggering in a way, that he hasn't said anything. Maybe he's not allowed to say anything, but I'm surprised he wasn't the one who came out and said, I'm back everyone, good news. He hasn't said anything. He's kept very, very quiet about the whole situation. So again, it's going to be very interesting what kind of role he's going to play. Now, Barman Machete has said he plays a considerable, important role in terms of the emotional aspect between him and Barry Allen. And now, what they've said is, and that because they've both lost their parents in a certain way, they have that in common. And so the rumour is that Bruce Wayne and Barry Allen start to investigate Barry's mum's murder, and they really don't find anything out. And apparently it's Bruce Wayne, or kind of Barry has this idea to time travel, and Bruce says he should do it. Now, that could be it. That could be it for Bruce Wayne in the Flash movie. We may never see him again, because once Barry goes into Flashpoint and comes back, we may not have a Ben Affleck Batman when we go back. And you know my theory, we've been speaking about it for 2 days. I don't want to start having the same conversations again, that I've given the scenario that maybe when he comes back, it's actually Robert Pattinson's Batman instead of Ben Affleck's Batman. So these scenarios are very kind of intriguing. Who stays, who goes, nobody knows. That rhymes, didn't it? I didn't mean to do that, by the way. But yeah, and so we can have our little theories. That's why I say when people say, you're wrong about this, you're wrong about that. Yes, I could be wrong. I could be totally wrong about everything. But one thing I'm not wrong about is that they're rebooting the franchise and they're kind of starting from scratch after Flashpoint. But obviously they're keeping certain elements. It's obvious they're not keeping other elements. The elements that they feel are not working within the franchise now. One of the things that's not working within the franchise now, the lack of interconnectivity. We've lost that since Snyder left. Snyder was telling an interconnected story. Whether you like Snyder's style or not, it was an interconnected saga, with one movie kind of leaping from the last movie, and I think that's a great way to do a franchise. In fact, the connective tissue is better in the Snyderverse than it actually is in the MCU, because those movies don't continue straight after each other, but it's pretty obvious they're part of the same franchise and there's crossovers and all of that, and people love it. And that's great. So it's clear what they want to do is create an interconnected universe, multiverse, where people can cross over into other people's movies and platforms, and I think that's exciting, and the world's your oyster. But we still don't know what's going to happen after Flashpoint, because I'm imagining this huge big reboot, but of course I could be wrong. It could be a small reboot. But it is clear after Flashpoint, after Barry goes back, after he, creates Flashpoint and goes back and attempts to fix things, that things won't be the same. Once Barry decides to time travel and save his mother's life, the DC Extended Universe, the DCEU, the DC live action franchise will never be the same again. So this really fascinates me. As you know, I talk about this all the time. As you know, there's not much news out there because of DC Fandom. So the past few episodes, I'm not getting as many views as I used to, but I think this is the conversations I want to have with you, and you're quite welcome to come in. And if you don't want to come in, if you find these type of conversations boring, I get it. But there really isn't much to talk about right now, so we're going to talk about this. Who do you think survives Flashpoint? Do you think Ben Affleck's Batman will be around to fight another day? Comments down below. Do you think Cavill's Superman will cameo in Fury of the Gods, the Shazam sequel we spoke about at the top of the show? Do we think he will be in Black Adam, or is he done? I think it's very difficult to have him done. There is a scenario where they talk about Cavill's Superman, but we don't see him. So after Flashpoint, he's just not there anymore, and it's referenced. They can do that, but of course the fans are not going to be happy. Listen, this situation, this reboot situation, has come about because of the problems that Snyder had with them and they had with Snyder. So, it can't continue like this. They released the Snyder Cut, and so they have to make the changes they feel they have to make. Now, whether they can do this successfully or not, next year will tell us. That's why it's such a big year. But I would like to know your thoughts on that. I really would. I'd like to know who you think survives Flashpoint. Because clearly, some of the existing actors playing these DC characters won't survive. And Affleck and Cavill could be the two casualties of this. And so, obviously, people were saying he wouldn't come back again, Affleck, he was too busy. He keeps on getting project announced after project. But he's found the time to do it. He's actually not shot his scenes yet. I think he was at that ball, weren't he? That stupid Ponzi ball. But and I think he was, wasn't he at the TIFF Awards or something as well? And so, but I think very shortly he will be shooting his scenes. Now, this is the thing. How much is he shooting? How much is he in this movie? And so, look, if he's deleted from the franchise after Flashpoint, people are going to be mad. There's no question about this. It's a difficult situation, really, because they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't. I think Affleck is a very popular Batman. I don't think anyone's going to be that upset if he stays. And right now I'm 50-50 on it. I just don't know. He's got more of a chance of, surviving Flashpoint than Cavill has. Because Cavill hasn't been spoken about. The studio didn't even wish him happy birthday. There's no evidence he's going to be involved in anything going forward. But the reason I think he will be in at least Fury of the Gods and Black Adam is because of his relationship with The Rock. He's got the same agent. So, through that, from that $9 or whatever company that The Rock's with and his ex-wife runs, they could have said, look, let Cavill work with us in these movies. He doesn't have to work with you in your movies. But if he's in Black Adam, and look, Black Adam is pre-Flashpoint, so he could easily be in that film. Now, if he's in Fury of the Gods, that means Henry Cavill's Superman has survived Flashpoint. But he's the one. He's the one in most danger of being deleted. It's something I don't want and something most of you don't want. But here we are. Here we are. We just don't know. And do I think he'll be at DC Fandom? I don't. I don't think we'll see him. I'll be very surprised. If he's at DC Fandom, that will be extremely exciting. This year's DC Fandom is very exciting. It's quite a mystery. Will it just be a rehash of what we had last year and nothing much? We won't see nothing much? No. there's going to be big announcements. There's no question about that. And they're certainly keeping, that shut. Now, they've obviously given us a couple of trailers of DC Fandom, and they've talked about the upcoming 5 movies and the stuff on HBO Max and the TV shows on the CW and on HBO Max as well. So they'll be talking about that. But you are talking about a huge 24-hour event. And even with the comic book stuff and the animated stuff, there's got to be other things as well. So they've certainly got some surprises up their sleeves. And we discussed a Joker sequel yesterday. I think that will be announced. Several other things will be announced as well. Look, the dream ticket would be if a Man of Steel sequel or the next Man of Steel movie with Henry Cavill was announced. There's zero chance of that. But again, anything's possible. I think DC Fandom will tell us if we can trust this team now working on DC live action. I have a little bit of trust in them, but listen, I don't know where their faults are, where their mindset is right now, and I think DC Fandom will help us see that. Of course, they're not going to lay all their cards on the table. They're not going to reveal what's going to happen in the films next year. They're not going to tell us everything about this reboot and what actually Flashpoint really means. We know what Flashpoint means. It's been hinted about that they're rebooting the franchise, but also it's clear we're not going to know everything. But yeah, it will be interesting to see what other projects we don't know about. For example, the Val Zod project, the Ta-Nehisi Coates Superman project. I would imagine they would have to talk about these projects there. If not, it could be another Ava DuVernay situation with New Gods where it just won't happen. I think if those 2 projects aren't spoken about at DC Fandom, you can pretty much say that they're probably not happening. They would have to mention them. Definitely have to mention them. Will Ann Sarnoff be at DC Fandom? I don't think she was there last year. So that'll be interesting. We know Jim Lee will be there. Walter Hamada would have to be there. We know Greg Berlanti's definitely going to be there. So there's going to be some conversations about present DC live action and a further conversation about the future of DC live action as well. And so that event is huge. And I think what's the date today? I don't know what the date is. But the 16th of October, I think it's the 15th, I think it might be the 15th or 16th of September. So we've literally, I think, got about a month, exactly a month to go to DC Fandom. So that's really, hype level. That's the event of the year for DC fans, and we're all kind of eager to find out what they're going to tell us, because the DCEU fans, us, have never been here before. It's really is an uncertain future in terms of we don't really know what the full plan is. But we know that people like Sasha Calle are now Supergirl. She will have a big future. Leslie Grace is playing Batgirl. She will have a huge future. Leslie Grace, I think, has been talking a little bit too much, wanting young women like her to see themselves on the telly. I've spoken about this before, or see themselves on the screen. Listen, I've told you about this before. There's nothing wrong with representation and inclusion. But this whole thing of seeing yourself on the screen is a bit of BS. I've never seen myself on the big screen before. But, it's about aspirational. It's watching a movie, watching a superhero, watching a character that you look up to is aspirational. They don't have to be the same gender as you. They have to share the same identity as you. None of that. And, they don't have to have the same race as you. It's aspirational that you see a hero doing heroic things and you want to do good things. You want to be like them. So you aspire to be a good person. That's the point of it. So seeing yourself on a TV screen or a movie screen isn't really the key element. It's the aspirational element of the whole thing. Now, I think Leslie Grace is great casting, and I think Sasha Calle is great casting, and I think those two girls will be on screen together at some point, maybe in the Flash movie. That's another exciting thing. Maybe we may even get confirmation of that. So you would expect Sasha Calle and Leslie Grace to be at DC Fandom. So that's really, really exciting. So DC Fandom is really the next thing, the next key to find out more of their plans for the future. A bit of sad news right now. There is a fan who was a fan of the Snyderverse, but mainly this fan, I think her name was Nycole, and she called herself, she went under the social media banner of Cold-Blooded Joker or something like that. She was a big Jared Leto Joker fan. She was pushing for the Air Cut to be released. Well, it was announced yesterday that she's died. And now I don't know how she died. Of course, it's very tragic. Now, this is an account that blocked me, but none of that is important. I'm very, very sorry that Nycole is no longer with us. So, you know, thoughts and prayers to her family. And let's just have a little 5 seconds of silence for Nycole, who lost her life. I don't know about you, but when we were fighting for the Snyder Cut, release the Snyder Cut, in my mind I used to fantasize about what the film would be, and I was very excited. I was thinking about great visuals, great storytelling, the kind of stuff we had in Snyder's Man of Steel and BVS. And I used to get really excited, and it used to inspire me to hashtag release the Snyder Cut even more. But you know what I imagined? What we actually got. Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut. Isn't that nuts? Most of the time when a project is coming, or you think about what a project's going to look like, it's very, very underwhelming. I mean, I imagine Justice League to be the most amazing film. I'm talking about Justice League. It wasn't. And that was underwhelming. The Last Jedi, again, the trailer showed us something amazing. It wasn't. I think Zack Snyder's Justice League Snyder Cut is one of those moments that you actually got what you thought you were going to get. And it's sensational. Because, you know, normally that doesn't happen. I thought at times maybe we might get underwhelmed by the Snyder Cut. And I didn't want that to happen because we fought so hard for it. And the belief and faith we put in Snyder and his vision was fulfilled. He really did fight a fight and work hard to give us something special. And, you know, his Justice League is something extremely special. And I would love to see the other 2 sequels. And when I imagine those sequels, again, I can imagine Justice League 2 mainly focused in the nightmare world. And, you know, I can't wait to see that. And I've got kind of scenarios and things in my head, how amazing that would look, the battles with Darkseid, how would it actually look like? And, you know, this is the thing with Snyder. He never really lets you down, does he? I think if you like Snyder, if you like what he does, then he never lets you down. There's not really a mystery with Snyder. You know what he's going to do. It says it on the tin. You know, basically you're going to eat his food. It's going to taste how you think it's going to taste. That doesn't make it predictable or boring. It's what you want. Because what Snyder gives you in his tin is so sensational, so beautiful, it always works. He's about the story. He's not going to waste time with bright colour palettes. He's not going to waste time with jokey sequences, waste of time sequences. Everything he gives you means something. And I think that's what I like about Snyder. You know, you always can trust him that he's going to give you what you want him to give you, because you know what he's going to give you. That's why you're his fans. That's why I'm a fan of his DC films, because you know they're going to look great. You know, they're going to be somewhat like gladiators or gods. And this is the way us who support Zack and fought for the Snyder Cut want to see these DC characters. And I think that's great that after all the fighting we did, all the heartbreak, you know, the Wall Street Journal hit piece thing, you know, horrible moments that nearly killed the franchise. Of course, that was or killed the fight, you know, to protect the franchise and Zack's movie, and they nearly kind of won that mission, but they didn't. But thankfully, people came along. Zack was more visible then, and Zack wasn't going to let them win. And this is, they underestimated Zack Snyder, and that's the key element here. But yeah, it is great that we fought for something, we had an imagination of what it could be, and it was exactly that. I mean, at times, the Snyder Cut goes beyond what you ever imagined it. But my point is, when I say I imagined it and it became what it was, that's exactly what I expected. I expected nothing less, and Snyder knew that. So when people like Emmerich said, just release what you got, release the rough cut, which I think is a despicable thing to expect someone to do, Snyder said no. Snyder had the power because everybody wanted it at that point. There was no getting away from it. We know who greenlit the Snyder Cut, and it was TNT, and it wasn't Warner Brothers Pictures, and that's why they were sour. This is why they leaked the movie on HBO Max, some of it, which was disgusting. Again, look, they were doing some very underhanded things. There's no question about that. And this is what I mean. I think they're dead people walking in terms of Zaslav and Discovery, because Zaslav and Discovery would have been watching those incidents and they wouldn't have been happy about it. Now, it'll be interesting if the multiverse strategy makes loads of money and, is a success, then maybe Zaslav will have to think again. But of course, there's also a scenario where he could say, well, you know what, you've done very well. We'll continue doing what you're doing. We'll keep the filmmakers, but we don't have to keep you. So we'll have to see what happens, but surely Zaslav would have seen the toxicity aimed at Zack Snyder from Warner Brothers Pictures. As I say, some of the stuff they were doing was so childish and so wrong. And the build-up, once we had the announcement, it was exciting because we thought the studio finally and Snyder were on the same page, but they weren't, because it wasn't the studio that greenlit it. And that was a surprise to me, what was going down between him and the studio. But we got the movie, and there was even a point where Zack was going to walk away, and he didn't walk away because of us, so I thank Zack Snyder for that. Look, the Snyder Cut is a piece of movie history. A piece of movie history they can never take away from us. I think it's a wonderful film. It's a compelling film. It's left in a great place. What do I think about the Green Lantern they cut out? Listen, I've kind of spoke about it in a balance. Sometimes I've sided with them because I kind of get what they want, but also I think they're pretty toxic as well. The truth is, it wouldn't have hurt anyone if his Green Lantern appeared at the end of that movie instead of Martian Manhunter. In fact, both characters could have been floating in the air talking to Ben Affleck's Bruce Wayne at the end, and it wouldn't have hurt anything. And it would have been really exciting to see, John Stewart, the Green Lantern, as this, what's his name, Wayne T. Carr. So it was sad for Wayne. I know that hurt Zack. Ultimately, he found a way around it. But yeah, if you're doing a multiverse strategy anyway, why do you care if they're introducing a new character, a new version of this character? But then again, I suppose they didn't want the memory of that John Stewart to be there. They wanted the memory of their very own John Stewart. So it'll be interesting when they do the Green Lantern core movie, who they actually cast as John Stewart Green Lantern. But I wouldn't be opposed to Wayne T. Carr doing it personally. So listen, it was all very, very unsavoury. I think any other director would have walked away. So when people say to me, yeah, Mick, I know what you think about Nolan and the whole, day and date thing, but don't you think that, maybe Nolan was pissed off about how they treated Snyder? Well, let's not forget, after how they treated Snyder, he still made Tenet with them, and that was the final film he's done with them at this point. But the only reason he walked away from this one wasn't because of Snyder and his buddy-buddy friendship. It was because of the day and date and because they shrunk the release theatrical window. So it's all about him, it's not about Snyder. So, so there's no loyalty in this industry. The creatives and the actors are just all in for themselves. I've spent time in Hollywood. I spent 6 months in Hollywood. I know how these people think. So at the end of the look, I know that Nolan tried to protect Snyder during Man of Steel. And we see all the stuff he demanded off Universal. And it's very interesting, but you can see how powerful he is within the industry. That's why no one was able to fuck with Man of Steel. We didn't need a director's cut. So that's great. So, the stuff he's demanded from Universal, he wants a 100-day release window or a 90-day, 100-day release window. He wants, I think, about, 20% of the profits. He wants full creative control. And he doesn't want any other movies to be released for about a month or so after his movie is out as well. So it's a very big package. Now, a lot of people think he's a diva for demanding all this. There's nothing that he hasn't demanded before in terms of The Dark Knight. I think he would have demanded less with Batman Begins because he wasn't that famous. Although Memento started getting him recognised as one of the great movies I've seen. Brilliant indie movie. But I think these are the stuff that he's always demanded. He's that type of filmmaker. He believes in the theatrical system. So I don't think he's a diva. I think the problem that Nolan's going to find going forward with the stuff I've seen him demand, you know, even Universal in a few years' time will be more over the streaming side. They'll still do theatrical. I think the theatrical model is safe. But, you know, I do feel that the release window will shrink. There's no question about that. But I still think that, you know, there's money to be made from theatres. I mean, Free Guy and Jungle Cruise and Shang-Chi and Black Widow have all proven that. The main blockbuster will make money in the movie theatre. It's the smaller movies that are not making money. That's the problem. And now they're all being pushed through to streaming. And that's a shame, and that's very sad. But I just think Nolan, and it'll be interesting moving forward what Nolan actually does. But I think moving forward, I think Nolan's going to find it very difficult via any studio to meet the demands that he wants. Now, he's got it this time. Congratulations to him. And we'll see what happens, what kind of model David Zaslav and Discovery want to build for Warner Discovery. Will they stick to the 45-day shrinkage of the theatrical window, or will they look to do something better? We'll have to wait and see. This has been the DCEU Daily. I'm Mick, your host with the most. Just ask your girlfriends and your wives. And I will see you again on tomorrow's DCEU Daily. Until then, goodbye.